Very dear students and audience from world over, this is Professor Dr. Ahmed recording a very short video for the benefit of my students. They are reading with me Ice Candyman and they're concerned about the theme of partition used in this Ice Candyman. So this video addresses to that theme. But before we go to this theme, we need to understand why the migrations takes place, why the partitions take place. Definitely migration is the result of partition, and as a result people have to locate and dislocate and relocate themselves into some other areas where they want to go or where they are forced to go. But before that, let us see how and why partitions occur. This is very, very important to know that partitions most of the time occur because of the differences of the people. Maybe these are religious differences, maybe these are the socio-political differences, but whatever these differences are, because of that it happens. And same is the case with the difference of opinion. If we want to break into two because we cannot live together, in that way also the partition takes place. And whenever the partition takes place, the migration is very much necessary from one side of the people to the other side of the people. And now, after having established that sometime the partitions takes place, this is not a new phenomenon. Partitions are happening everywhere. For example, in Europe, partition of the countries which were Croatia, Yugoslavia, etc. They participated. They then broke up into different parts, and same was the case with the other parts of the world. In Malaysia and Indonesia, for example, certain parts were separated. Same is the case with the Indian subcontinent, that it was divided into Pakistan and that of India. But this partition is unique in the sense that huge exodus type of migration took place because of that. Now, what happened at the time of 1947? That the British, who were ruling over this country, which was called Indo-Pak subcontinent, these people, after the termination of the Second World War, wanted to go back, but before they wanted to go back, they established two states. The question is that why these two states were established. Definitely because of the nationalism, or because of the Muslim struggle, or because of the socio-political situations and religious situations, this happened. So one can say that this partition which took place in India was not simply because of the offshoots of war, because of the fallout of decolonization, but also because of the religious differences of the people. Muslims wanted to live in a separate homeland, so that is why they needed and wanted, and the concept of the two-nation theory was popularized, and ultimately it was the separate country, Pakistan, established for them. And so partition of the Indo-Pak subcontinent took place on ethnic grounds, on let's say religious grounds, and then ultimately we can say socio-political grounds. There are different theories about that. Right now, it's not the matter that this should be considered. My focus is for my students on the novel which covers this theme of partition, Ice Candyman, by Websi Sidhwa. Sidhwa is a person who's Pakistani writer, definitely celebrated Pakistani writer, and she is most of the time giving certain views about partition in almost every novel which she writes. So in that way, partition is working all the time in the background of the fiction written by Websi Sidhwa. For example, in the Pakistani Bride, if you look, the bride definitely emerges from a child, and the child is the person who's lost because of this migration and atrocities committed in the name of migration. And same is the case with the Crow Eaters. The long journey from Karachi to Lahore takes place because of this partition, and ultimately dislocation occurs. These are different type of things which happen in her novels. And Ice Candy Man is particular with reference to that it records the very moment of 1947. However, 1947 moment arrives after certain, kind of activities which can become the context of this 1947, and so Sidhwa has also taken a lot of time in order to engage us in certain number of years before partition and 1 or 2 years after partition. So this novel, based on partition, has got its own way of describing the things. We have different characters, and we can see how partition affected these characters. As a whole, let us say that the population of India, which could be Sikhs, Hindus, Muslims, they were very much influenced because of this activity. They were, all of them were engaged in that, and all of them were trying to save whatever they had, and all of them were trying to escape as well from the situation which had occurred. When partition took place, the kind of migration took place from India to Pakistan and from Pakistan to India. The people used to live together, as it has been shown in the novel, that Parsis, Sikhs, Christians, Hindus, Muslims, all these people are living together. But as soon as partition takes place, everybody becomes everybody's enemy. And so everyone wants to escape and everyone wants to save himself. And so in that way, they were migrating from one part of the world to the other part, the huge world of India. So in that way, migration took place because of partition, and partition is the cause of this migration, which resulted in number of atrocities, number of displacements, number of problems which happened here. Let us see this partition with reference to certain characters in the novel. Let's take first of all the Ice Candyman, the protagonist or the title based character. That Ice Candyman is the person who is a happy lot, who all the time enjoys everything, whatever he's doing. He's a friend of Shanta, he's a friend of Lenny, he's a friend of a number of people. Actually, he's a numberdar of all these working people, and he's got a number of roles to perform, like bird seller, he becomes, and ultimately he becomes a yogi as well. He becomes a person who massages the people as well. So in that way, number of things he does, and he's all the time very happy. But then partition take place. This is the man who suffers most, because he is the one who tries to save Shanta, but the safety is very ridiculous and ironic that he saves her by putting her into the brothel, although he was the biggest lover of Shanta. So this may be called his loss or the loss of Shanta, but he does suffer from this migration. All his professions are molested. He has to go to India, to Amritsar, in order to continue with his life or to mate his people. And then he also loses number of people who are coming to stay with him from India to Pakistan. They were also lost and killed and destroyed on the way. So for Ice Candyman, this didn't prove to be something useful, something right, though he was a Muslim and living in Pakistan area of Lahore. And same should be seen with reference to Shanta. Shanta is a Hindu woman, everybody knows that she is a beautiful woman. She is a true representative, feministic type of representation of Indian women, because she's the one who suffers because of religion. She is working in the home of Parsis. She's a Hindu girl. She's a very young person, and number of people love her, want to gain her attention. But all these people leave her alone when partition takes place, and the writers come to the house of Lenny in order to pick her. They discover her, and she's molested, and ultimately she's conveyed, dragged and put into the brothel house, and there she supposedly is a singing girl. And the claim of the Ice Candyman is that he has tried to save her. Same is the case with the Lenny as well, who's just a child. She looks at the partition through her own eyes, and although she's a Parsi child and she's got her Parsi family, but then the question is that Parsis are just looking at the partition. They're getting nothing, because there is no Pakistan. It is simply India and Pakistan which are established. So from when we look at the partition with the eye of Lenny, it's all destruction, it's all problem, it's all the cruelties and the bloodshed and destruction which has taken place. The word which was the united word of India, united word of the people, let us say, not that of India, that word was shattered and destroyed, which was seen by Lenny. Her own word, which was though very small, very happy word, but that was also again shattered. So through the child's eye, one can have a better glimpse of this partition theme. Same as the case with the other characters. For example, Hamida, another maid servant, is there. She is also one of the women who is a walking tale of the atrocities and cruelties committed on her and her family. Because of that, she is left alone, and she's in Lahore, has got nothing and nobody to support her. And she comes forward and joins the house of Lenny as a replacement of Shanta as a servant. So in that way, there are the women which are living in the rehabilitation center, and the time of night cries and howls from the women who suffered from that. Psychological trauma was there. That was all witnessed by Lenny. So in that way, number of characters are influenced because of that. And then comes the itself the other characters which may be from the Sikh families or the other families who suffered because of all that. So if we look at the novel with the eye of these people, 1, 2, 3, 4, we are able to find out what is happening. And then overall calculation of this partition should also be shown, that what was lost, what was gained. The gain was only one thing, that the Pakistani people got their own identity. They were, before Pakistan, they were living in India. They were called Indian Muslims, but now they were called Pakistani people. So in that way, one change of identity happened. But this very change of identity caused homelessness and then homefulness as well. These people who were living in Delhi, for example, Agra, for example, even in Punjab, for example, Amritsar, for example, or in Lahore, they were displaced from Pakistan to India, India to Pakistan. They had no homes to live, and as a result, this homelessness occurred. Loss of identity also occurred. Homelessness occurred. And then deterritorialization and re-territorialization of the people also occurred. The people who traveled from India, for example, Muslim people traveled from India to came to Pakistan, for example, these people lost their homes, lost their loved ones, lost their properties, and on the way they were attacked and brutally destroyed and killed and injured, and these people therefore became totally homeless and territorialized. When they come in Pakistan, Pakistan was not a place where they could find a living home and where they can enter and say, okay, we have come. It was not the case at all. But they had to find out a home for themselves. They had to rehabilitate themselves there. And so reterritorialization was necessary to take place. So in this way, this thing continued to occur because of this partition. We can say that this partition possibly happened because of the colonization process. So when British people came here, colonized this country, and when they left, this type of result came of that. So one way or the other, this thing is related to colonialism as well. And the fallout of post-colonialism and decolonization was also there because of this. The Pakistan was established. So in this way, theme of partition has been employed by Sidhwa in order to explain what was partition, how and why did it happen, and ultimately what were the losses and the problems which the people saved, and how did they rehabilitate. So the purpose is to historicize all which happened with the Muslim or with the Hindus, and to let the history be repeated and shown to the people who are now the young generation. They should know how Pakistan was established. So really, this is a very great novel and tries to let us know what were the problems which happened, how did the people sacrifice their properties, lives, their honors, their respects, and their places and their homes, how did they lose that in order to create this country which is called Pakistan. So Bapsi Sidhwa's great contribution in writing about partition in her novel Ice Candyman. I hope my students will be able to take these points, and they may be taking the kind of references, the textual evidences, as well as the critical evidences they can search on and put into these points, and they can prepare a very good assignment on theme of partition in Bapsi Sidhwa's novel Ice Candyman. So that's it from me for this day. Hopefully seeing you in the next novel. If you like this video, do not fail to hit the subscribe button. So that's it from me. Okay, see you next time.